A military genius orchestrates the most miraculous, bloodless conquest of his career, yet in doing so, perfectly engineers his own total destruction. A fugitive with barely 1,000 men recaptured a massive European power without firing a shot. But a hidden logistical rot doomed his final campaign before the first battle even began. In early 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte was confined to the tiny island of Elba. From this rocky outpost, the defeated emperor watched as his victorious enemies, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, carved up the map of Europe. But whispers soon reached him that these great powers were turning on each other, and that the restored French monarchy was widely despised. Leaving Elba was a highly calculated opening move in a desperate, unwinnable chess match. Napoleon himself intended to cross the Mediterranean and force the great powers of Europe to react to him. In late February, his small flotilla slipped quietly across the water, passing within shouting distance of a French Royal Navy brig. For reasons that remain a mystery, the suspicious vessel was never stopped or searched. Landing in southern France on March 1st, his small band immediately faced a grueling climb. To avoid royalist strongholds along the main roads, Napoleon led his men east, trekking 190 miles in 6 days along narrow, icy mountain tracks. At 45 years old, the former emperor was forced to travel much of this treacherous route on foot. He frequently stumbled and required help from his guards, a stark physical contrast to the vigorous, youthful commander who had crossed these same mountains 15 years earlier. The exhausted column finally hit a wall on March 7th outside Grenoble. A regiment of the king's infantry, veterans of Napoleon's own empire, blocked the road, standing with muskets raised, and their captain preparing the order to fire. Outnumbered and outgunned, Napoleon had no military options. His survival now depended entirely on the sheer psychological weight of his legacy. Stepping out ahead of his guards, Napoleon threw open his gray coat and addressed the opposing line directly. He told the soldiers that if there was one among them who wished to kill his emperor, he was standing right there. The command to fire was met with dead silence. Then cries of "Vive l'Empereur" broke out as the royalist troops rushed to join him. Soon after, Marshal Ney, who had sworn to bring Napoleon back to the king in an iron cage, defected with 3,000 men, prompting the king to abandon Paris and flee to the Netherlands. On March 20th, Napoleon walked back into the Tuileries Palace to the cheers of his supporters. Reclaiming the crown was remarkably simple, but by taking back the French strait, he instantly guaranteed his own destruction. This map shows the rapid mobilization of the Seventh Coalition. When the Allied monarchs at the Congress of Vienna heard of his return, they immediately put aside their differences. While Napoleon scrambled to gather a battered force of 200,000 troops, 4 massive armies, British, Prussian, Austrian, and Russian, began marching toward a single point in France, with a combined strength of nearly 1 million men. His masterful political maneuvering had won him Paris, but it triggered a mathematical nightmare. Facing a 5-to-1 disadvantage, surviving an all-out military confrontation was effectively impossible. Inside France, the nation was entirely exhausted by a decade of constant warfare. Conscription was deeply unpopular, and royalist insurrections forced the deployment of desperately needed troops to put down domestic revolts. Meanwhile, despite working grinding 15-hour days, Napoleon's legendary energy was fading, marked by sudden bouts of deep lethargy. Compounding his failing health was a catastrophic collapse in his command structure. Out of the 26 marshals he had created, most were dead, too old or loyal to the Bourbons. Most critically, he was missing Marshal Berthier, his indispensable chief of staff, who had flawlessly translated his thoughts into complex logistical orders for 2 decades. Berthier had fled to the Netherlands alongside the king. But on the eve of the new war, he fell from a high window to his death, an incident officially deemed an accident, though foul play was widely suspected. To fill this massive administrative void, Napoleon assigned the role to Marshal Soult, one of his best battlefield tacticians. It was a disastrous mismatch of skills. Soult immediately bungled the marching orders, mistakenly concentrating the entire army far west of where they actually needed to be. Time was rapidly slipping away.
Despite an early mutiny among Saxon troops that briefly disrupted the Prussian forces, the coalition armies under Blücher in Wellington were now fortifying the Belgian frontier, tightening the noose around France. The flawless administrative engine that had built the French Empire was shattered. Napoleon was left trying to maneuver a hollowed-out army, relying entirely on his own deteriorating stamina to hold the fragile command structure together. Knowing he couldn't survive a war of attrition, Napoleon devised a desperate plan, a lightning-fast preemptive strike into Belgium. The goal was to wedge his forces between the British and Prussian armies and defeat them separately before their overwhelming numbers could merge. Always a believer in fate and lucky omens, he selected June 14th, the anniversary of his great victories at Marengo and Friedland, as the exact date to launch the most high-stakes invasion of his life. But the reality of his broken army quickly shattered his superstitions. On the eve of the attack, vital cavalry units were miles behind schedule, an entire infantry corps was inexplicably delayed, and a division commander defected to the enemy. Napoleon was forced to delay the start of his lightning offensive by 24 crucial hours. This fatal delay proved that the political brilliance of his bloodless coup meant nothing against a shattered chain of command. He believed his sheer willpower could override mathematical reality and failing logistics. But the outcome was locked in from the moment he stepped foot in Paris. The board was set against him long before he ordered the 1st Battalion across the frontier. Thanks for watching. If you want to see how this final, desperate campaign unfolded on the battlefields of Waterloo, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below.